All right, buckle up, everybody, because today on the deep dive, we are diving headfirst into one of the most, well, let's just say interesting tracks in music history. We're talking, of course, about Revolution 9, that 8-minute sound collage on the Beatles' White Album.
Yeah, it's not exactly your typical Beatles tune.
Not at all. It's like, what were they thinking? But that's why we're here, right? To try to make sense of it all. And we've got a ton of great articles that you, the listener, sent in. So thank you for that. So get ready to uncover the secrets, the influences, and maybe even some of the controversies behind this iconic piece of music history.
I think iconic is one way to put it.
It's definitely a piece that gets people talking, to say the least.
Yeah, you could say that.
So where do we even begin with something like Revolution 9?
Well, I think it's important to understand that it didn't just come out of nowhere. It actually evolved from a much more conventional starting point, Revolution 1.
Wait, seriously, that's where it came from. I mean, those two songs couldn't be more different.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of hard to believe. But originally, Revolution 9 was conceived as like an extended ending to Revolution 1.
Really?
Yeah, John Lennon, he was really captivated by this idea of like capturing the sound of a revolution, like
Right.
the energy, the chaos, the upheaval, and turning it into this sonic experience.
I can kind of hear that, yeah, with all the like jarring noises and the dissonant layers.
Exactly.
Okay, right.
It's not exactly a peaceful sing-along kind of vibe.
Not at all. More like a sonic assault, almost.
Well, and it's fascinating to see how Lennon's vision for the piece kind of evolved as he delved deeper into the world of avant-garde music, particularly this style known as musique concrète.
Okay, hold on. Now you're throwing out some fancy French terms. What in the world is musique concrète?
So basically, musique concrète is music that's created from recorded sounds. So rather than, using traditional instruments,
Oh,
it's all about like manipulating everyday sounds, street noises, machines, voices,
yeah.
and turning them into musical compositions. Think of composers like Karlheinz Stockhausen, who, by the way, was actually featured on the Strat Peppers album cover.
Wow, I never made that connection. So the Beatles were already like rubbing shoulders with the avant-garde crowd.
Oh, absolutely. And this
Really?
exposure really had a profound impact on Lennon's creative direction. But the making of Revolution 9, it really took this experimental approach to a whole new level.
So paint me a picture here. What was it actually like in the studio during those recording sessions?
Just imagine a whirlwind of creative energy, tape loops running amok, sound effects being spliced and diced, audio being played backward, and snippets of vocals just woven into this crazy sonic tapestry.
It's chaotic.
Oh, it was organized chaos on a grand scale. They used, get this, at least 45 different sound sources for this one track.
45. Wow.
Yeah, they were really pushing the boundaries of what was even possible in a recording studio at that time.
That's wild. I always kind of assumed that Revolution 9 was like purely a John Lennon and Yoko Ono creation. But I remember reading somewhere that George Harrison actually played a bigger role than most people realize.
Yeah, that's right. It's easy to overlook Harrison's contribution, but he was very much involved in shaping the sonic landscape of Revolution 9.
So what did he do exactly?
Well, multiple accounts suggest that he was like instrumental in selecting sounds, creating loops, and just contributing to that overall experimental vibe. He was like a sonic architect working behind the scenes to construct this sprawling soundscape.
That's really interesting. And wasn't Paul McCartney totally out of the loop during all of this?
He was actually.
Yeah.
McCartney was out of the country while Revolution 9 was being created. And when he got back and heard the final product, let's just say he wasn't exactly thrilled.
I can imagine it's a far cry from, hey Jude, to say the least.
You could say that. Yeah, but McCartney's reaction just goes to show how radical and unexpected Revolution 9 really was. It was a bold statement, a deliberate departure from the Beatles' familiar sound.
Okay, so we've got this wild experimental sound, a chaotic recording process, and a somewhat divided band. But what about the actual musical influences beyond, that music concrete stuff? Where did those come from?
Well, Revolution 9 wasn't just some random assortment of sounds thrown together. It was built on a foundation of really diverse musical influences, both from within the Beatles' own repertoire and from the broader avant-garde scene.
Okay, so like what kind of influences are we talking about?
Well, you can hear echoes of some of their earlier experiments, like the psychedelic soundscapes of Tomorrow Never Knows.
Yeah.
But Lennon was also deeply immersed in the works of avant-garde pioneers like John Cage and, of course, Stockhausen.
John Cage, the guy who composed that famous silent piece, 4/33.
The very same.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is that both Cage and Stockhausen were all about, challenging the conventions of traditional music. They were questioning the very definition of music, pushing the boundaries of what was considered, acceptable or even listenable.
I see.
And you can definitely hear that rebellious spirit in Revolution 9, for sure.
It's like they took those avant-garde ideas and just ran wild with them.
Exactly. And let's not forget about the influence of Yoko Ono. She and Lennon were already collaborating on their own avant-garde projects at the time, exploring unconventional sounds and, pushing artistic boundaries together. So it's no coincidence that Revolution 9 emerged during this period of really intense creative exploration.
So it's like all these influences, the Beatles' own experimentation, the avant-garde movement, and Lennon's partnership with Yoko, it all kind of converged to create this sonic explosion.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. It's a fascinating mix of history, artistry, and a good dose of creative rebellion.
Yep.
It's a sonic tapestry woven from many different threads. And it's a real testament to the Beatles' willingness to push boundaries and embrace the unknown. They weren't afraid to experiment, to challenge their audience, and to create something truly unique and unforgettable.
For sure. Okay, so we've got the background, we've got the influences, but what is Revolution 9 actually about? Like, what's going on in this crazy soundscape? What were they trying to achieve?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Let's try to make sense of this sonic whirlwind together. So imagine you're listening to Revolution 9 for the first time, right? And you're greeted by this recurring piano theme, this haunting melody in B minor that creates this sense of like melancholic unease.
Yeah, that's the part that always stuck with me. Even amidst all the other chaos, it's like a musical anchor in a sea of sound.
Exactly. It provides this strange sense of grounding, a hint of familiarity in this unfamiliar sonic terrain. And then you have that iconic number 9 voice, this disembodied voice repeating those words, panning back and forth across the stereo field.
Oh, yeah, it's almost hypnotic the way it weaves in and out of the other sounds. I read somewhere that it was actually an engineer's voice, like from a test tape.
That's right. Lennon just stumbled upon this tape while they were working on the album, and he was immediately captivated by the sound. He thought it added this strange, ethereal quality to the piece.
Interesting. And then on top of that, you've got those snippets of classical music, right?
Yes. Lennon and Harrison were cutting up and splicing together like fragments of classical recordings, creating these unexpected juxtapositions. You can hear strains of like Vaughan Williams, Sibelius, Schumann. It's like a musical collage, but with these flashes of recognizable melodies buried within this avant-garde landscape.
Yeah, it's as if they're deconstructing these traditional structured pieces of music, turning them into something entirely new and unexpected.
Precisely. They're playing with musical expectations, challenging our preconceived notions of, what music should sound like. And then there are those sound effects.
Yeah.
The shattering of glass, the cries of a baby, the jarring bursts of gunfire,
Right.
all woven into this sonic tapestry.
It's like a sonic representation of chaos and violence, a reflection of the turbulent times they were living in. And what about those spoken word parts? Those always struck me as particularly strange and unsettling.
Yeah, those spoken word sections definitely add another layer of surrealism to the piece. It's like Lennon and Harrison are reading random bits of text, sometimes backwards, sometimes distorted, creating this stream of consciousness that reflects the fragmented state of the world.
It's like being thrown into a whirlwind of sound and language, a sensory overload that's both intriguing and disorienting.
Exactly. And I think that was part of their intention. They wanted to create something that would challenge listeners, make them confront the chaos and uncertainty of the era.
Oh, they definitely achieved that. But it's funny, even with all this chaos and dissonance, some people, they genuinely loved Revolution 9. What did they see in it that others didn't?
That's a great question, and one we'll dive into a little deeper after a quick break. Stay tuned as we explore the reception and legacy of this controversial and enigmatic piece of Beatles history. It's fascinating how a piece like as abstract and challenging as Revolution 9 can evoke such wildly different reactions from people. It's like a sonic Rorschach test, in a way, revealing as much about the listener as it does about the music itself.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's not a piece you can just passively listen to. It demands your attention. It forces you to engage with it on a deeper level.
Absolutely.
But for some people, that engagement led to like a genuine appreciation for Revolution 9's artistry.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. While some critics just dismissed it as, noise or a self-indulgent experiment, others saw it as a groundbreaking work of art, this bold and innovative exploration of sound that pushed the boundaries of music.
Yeah.
They really admired its originality, its refusal to conform to any conventional structures or expectations.
It's like they were saying, hey, we're not going to give you just another pop song. We're going to challenge you, make you think, make you feel something you've never felt before.
Exactly.
And for those listeners who were willing to go on that journey, Revolution 9 could be a profoundly rewarding experience.
Yeah.
They found beauty in the chaos, in the unexpected juxtapositions of sounds.
Yeah, the way it evoked this sense of uh, unease and disorientation that kind of mirrored the turbulent times they were living in.
It's like finding beauty in the unconventional, in the things that make you uncomfortable. It's a reminder that art doesn't always have to be, pretty or easy to digest.
That's a great way to put it.
But it's important to remember the historical context in which Revolution 9 was created. I mean, the late 1960s, it was a time of immense social and political upheaval. The Vietnam War, the Civil Rights Movement, the rise of counterculture. And Revolution 9, it captures that sense of unrest, that feeling that the world was on the brink of something big, something transformative.
You could say that it was Lennon's way of expressing the revolution he saw happening all around him, not just in the streets, but in the hearts and minds of people.
That's interesting.
And he did it not through, traditional lyrics or melodies, but through this jarring, dissonant, yet strangely compelling sonic landscape.
Okay, I think we've talked about like the context, the influences, but let's go back to the music itself. We've touched on some of the key elements, the piano theme, the number 9 voice, the classical music snippets. But how do they all fit together? What's the structure of Revolution 9, if you can even call it that?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's not a traditional song structure, that's for sure. There's no verse, chorus, verse, no clear melodic progression. Instead, it's more like a sonic collage. A stream of consciousness where different sounds and textures just ebb and flow, sometimes clashing, sometimes blending together in these unexpected ways.
It's like a dream or maybe a nightmare where images and sounds morph and shift, creating this disorienting but fascinating experience.
That's a great analogy. And just like a dream, Revolution 9 can be interpreted in so many different ways. There's no single definitive meaning. It's really open to the listener's own subjective experience and interpretation.
Yeah, I can see that. So where do we even begin to unpack this sonic puzzle?
Well, we've already talked about that haunting piano theme in B minor. It's one of the few recurring elements in the piece. And it really creates this sense of melancholic unease that kind of underpins the entire composition.
Right, it's like a thread that runs through the entire tapestry,
Yeah.
connecting the disparate elements and giving the piece a sense of coherence, however fragile.
Exactly.
And then you have that disembodied number 9 voice, which appears throughout the piece, sometimes whispered, sometimes shouted, always haunting and unsettling.
Yeah, it's like a recurring motif, a sonic signature that keeps pulling us back into this strange and unfamiliar world.
Like a ghost in the machine, a reminder that we're not in Kansas anymore. And then there are those flashes of classical music,
Yeah.
those snippets of recognizable melodies that appear and disappear as if in a fever dream. So what was Lennon's intention there? Was he trying to like subvert those classical forms, or was it something else entirely?
It's hard to say for sure, but I think Lennon was fascinated by the tension between order and chaos, between the familiar and the unfamiliar. By incorporating these fragments of classical music into this avant-garde soundscape, he was creating a kind of musical dialogue, a clash of styles that reflected the cultural and political clashes happening in the world around him.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's like he's taking these iconic symbols of Western culture and fracturing them, reassembling them into something new and unsettling, a reflection of the fragmentation and upheaval of the late 1960s.
You're spot on. And then, of course, you have those sound effects, the shattering of glass, the cries of a baby, the jarring bursts of gunfire, which add this visceral, almost cinematic quality to the piece. It's like Lennon is creating a sonic landscape of revolution, a soundscape that evokes both the excitement and the terror of a world in turmoil.
Right, and those spoken word sections, they always struck me as particularly strange and unsettling. It's like they're trying to make sense of the chaos, but the words themselves are just as fragmented and disjointed as the sounds around them.
Yeah, those spoken word sections definitely add another layer of surrealism to the piece.
Yeah.
It's almost like Lennon and Harrison are channeling a stream of consciousness, this chaotic flow of thoughts and images that reflect the fragmented state of the world.
So they're not just creating a soundscape of external chaos, but also exploring like the internal chaos, the anxiety and uncertainty that permeated the era.
So Cecily.
It's a truly immersive experience, both sonically and emotionally, and I think that's what makes Revolution 9 so compelling. Even decades after its release, it's not just a song; it's a sonic journey, an invitation to explore the boundaries of music and perception.
And it's a reminder that even in the midst of chaos, even when the world seems to be, falling apart, there's still beauty to be found if you're willing to look for it. Revolution 9 might not be for everyone, but for those who are willing to uh, embrace its strangeness and its power, it can be a truly transformative experience.
It's a challenge, an invitation to step outside our comfort zones and expand our understanding of what music can be. And you know what? After this deep dive, I'm feeling inspired to go back and give Revolution 9 another listen. See what new layers I can uncover, what new meanings I can find in its sonic tapestry.
I encourage you to do so. Each listen reveals something new, some subtle detail you may have missed before. It's a piece that rewards repeated listening. And it's a reminder that the most challenging and unconventional works of art are often the ones that have the most to teach us.
And perhaps the most enduring legacy of Revolution 9 is that it paved the way for other artists to experiment, to break the rules, and to push the boundaries of music. It showed that popular music could be something more than just, catchy melodies and predictable structures. It could be a sonic adventure, a journey into the unknown.
Absolutely. Revolution 9 was a sonic revolution, and its impact continues to be felt today. It expanded the possibilities of music, and it continues to inspire artists to this day to challenge conventions and explore new sonic territories.
It's a reminder that true art is about more than just entertainment. It's about pushing boundaries, provoking thought, and creating experiences that stay with us long after the music has stopped.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to delve into the darker side of Revolution 9's legacy. The controversial connection to Charles Manson and the tragic events that unfolded in the late 1960s.
Right. That's a heavy topic, but an important one to address. It's a reminder that art can be interpreted in many ways, and sometimes those interpretations can have unintended and devastating consequences. So let's unpack this complex and disturbing chapter in Revolution 9's history.
Yeah, it's chilling, really, to think that a piece of music like Revolution 9, intended as this artistic expression, could be twisted into something so dark and destructive.
It really is. It's a stark reminder that art, even with the purest of intentions, can be misinterpreted and manipulated, to serve dangerous agendas.
Right, right. So for our listener who might not be familiar with this chapter of history, let's unpack the connection between Revolution 9 and Charles Manson.
Okay, so back in the late 1960s, Charles Manson, this charismatic but deeply disturbed cult leader, he became fixated on the Beatles' White Album, and particularly on Revolution 9.
He believed that the album, and this song specifically, contained coded messages predicting an apocalyptic race war that he called Helter Skelter.
He thought the Beatles were predicting a race war. How did he even come to that conclusion?
Well, Manson was a master manipulator. He preyed on vulnerable people, and he would twist the Beatles' lyrics and sounds to fit his own warped worldview, claiming they were sending him secret messages about an impending societal collapse.
Wow. And Revolution 9 with its chaotic soundscapes and fragmented voices, it probably played right into his delusions.
Oh, absolutely. The song's experimental nature, its use of sound effects like gunshots and screams,
Yeah.
and its overall sense of disorientation, it provided ample fodder for Manson's twisted interpretations.
Right, right.
He would point to specific sounds and phrases, claiming they were proof of the Beatles' endorsement of his violent ideology.
It's horrifying to think that he used this piece of music, this artistic expression, to justify his horrific crimes.
It really is. It's a tragic reminder that art can be a powerful tool, And like any tool, it can be used for good or for evil.
Right.
But it's crucial to emphasize that Manson's interpretation of Revolution 9 was entirely his own, as a product of his own deranged mind.
Yeah. The Beatles, they never intended to incite violence or predict an apocalypse. I mean, their music was about peace, love, and pushing creative boundaries.
Exactly. Manson's actions were a perversion of their art. It's tragic misinterpretation that had devastating consequences.
This whole episode has been a wild ride, to say the least, from the experimental origins of Revolution 9 to its, unexpected influences and its mixed reception, and now this dark chapter with Charles Manson. It's a lot to process.
It really is. Revolution 9, it's a piece that defies easy categorization. It's challenging, it's unsettling, and even disturbing at times. But it's also a testament to the power of art to provoke, to challenge, and to spark important conversations.
Yeah, I agree. So after this deep dive, what are your final thoughts on Revolution 9, masterpiece, mess, or something in between?
I think it's all of those things and more. It's a piece that defies simple labels, really. It's a sonic experiment that pushes the boundaries of music. It's a cultural artifact that reflects the anxieties and aspirations of a turbulent era, and it's a reminder that art, even in its most abstract and challenging forms, can have a profound impact on the world.
Well said. It's a reminder to listen closely, to engage with art on its own terms, and to be mindful of the power it holds to shape our perceptions and influence our
I
actions.
think that's a really important point.
Well, that's our deep dive into Revolution 9. It's been quite a journey, sonic exploration, historical context, and even a touch of darkness. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
And remember, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those ears open to the unexpected.
Until next time, keep diving deep.